its own Євромайдан, basically. So it's very important for us, I mean, to feel this support from Europe. And what is your impression?
Starting with this event in the European Parliament, it was my colleague Rebecca Harms who organized it. She's been here very often, and it is a very strange situation. You come downtown and you have the feeling everything is normal in this city, and we coming from the outside, though know from our TV, from our information, from the debates that, I don't know, 1,000 meters further on, you have the city center, and actually there is a big struggle over which direction this country is going to go. So when we passed the Maidan today, which is like a big, to a certain extent, like a big festival, you know, people sitting together around fires and making music, and I really was impressed by this open university, which you can see there, and playing music. It looks very peaceful, but I also know that the groups who are demonstrating there politically have very, very different opinions. That, for example, it is not normal that the right-wing people who are on this place also accept those who are fighting for Europe because they are fighting for rights for gay people, for example. So looking at it and knowing something about the differences, you can identify it just by the colors of the people. Shows you that this is a very mixed up society. And my questions thus go to where is the exit, or where is the next step to take, so that just letting the time go on will give time to Yanukovych to go on with his game between Brussels and Moscow. So on one side it is making me very optimistic to see so many young people, to see all this fantasy, to see the brain in it, to see this smell of freedom and open society. But the question that makes me worried is, what are going to be the next steps? What decision is realistic? What can happen at once, what shouldn't happen? So, yes, it's having in mind that the Kremlin is very decided at the moment to to illustrate a strong Moscow again. And I think this is what Putin has in mind, saying that the biggest catastrophe of the 20th century was that Gorbachev let the Soviet Union fall apart, which meant freedom and sovereignty for Ukraine or for Belarus. Knowing that, I'm really worried that the Ukraine might be squeezed between Brussels and Moscow, and this should not happen. We should not let that happen, and we should find a bright and intelligent way out of that possible trap.
Lots of people, I mean experts, say that this situation, I mean not signing the agreement between EU and Ukraine can lead to basically to catastrophe for Eastern Europe and maybe for the whole Europe. For example, Lilia Shevtsova, it's a famous Russian expert. What do you think?
Well, I hope, I don't want to have thoughts like that at the moment, but I think what you do have to see that the Kremlin might even be cynical enough to try to destabilize all those countries who belong to this Eastern Partnership. And to a certain extent, they have done it already. Moldova is a state that has one part of the country where there is no government in it, practically a divided country. And I know that Putin promised to Angela Merkel that that would be the first crisis they would work on together, which did not happen. Then you take Georgia. Yes, it definitely was not, Saakashvili was taking this big risk and not moving very bright. And immediately the South Ossetia, the Russian side took the chance, and South Ossetia and Abkhazia is now not a part of active Georgia at the time. Belarus was being forced before the election, signing treaties with Russia. I hope that there won't be a chance to maybe draw a line within the population of Ukraine where you have the eastern part with a stronger tendency towards Moscow and the western population a stronger tendency towards Brussels.
Which way, as you see, is the better one for this situation, for current Ukrainian situation? How can it be solved?
I don't have the solution, and I think the people here have to decide that, and we can't bring the solution from the outside. But I'm very convinced that the modernization which Ukraine needs and Russia needs too will not come with a government and a system like you have in Russia at the moment, which is authoritarian, which is not stable because corruption is everywhere. You need a breath of freedom in a society also for economic prosperity. And this means rule of law, this means no corruption, this means a justice where you really can rely on. This means young people who have the possibility to start and experiment, and all this is not happening in Russia. The state is living off selling gas and oil. This is no perspective for economy of the country. So if the Kremlin was a little more rational, they would understand that this association treaty actually is a treaty to give impulses to the development of a modern and open society. And since if Ukraine is linked in this way to Brussels and to the EU countries, and Ukraine is linked with Russia anyway, they could benefit from it also. So actually fighting this association treaty is also fighting the benefit and the future of the population in Russia.
How do Europeans, I mean people who are working in some European bodies, EU bodies, see the future of relations between Ukraine and EU at this moment?
Well, at the moment everybody is very worried, and our public is very worried. We have different views on the perspective. I would say it is necessary that for the first step should be visa liberalization and free traveling. That would show the people in Ukraine the best, that it is not their money that they want, but that they want them, the people themselves, that the doors are really open. This is number one. And the second is, I think we should also say, although it is a long way for Ukraine and reforms that are tough in certain stages, and Poland and the Baltic states know what I'm talking about. But there is the perspective of joining the European Union because Ukraine is part of Europe. And this is not being spoken so openly in many European country politics, because at the moment the European Union has so many problems that we lack the fantasy that a big country like Ukraine might be in front of the door. And in fact, if you look at the situation, this association treaty does not mean Ukraine entering the EU. It is only starting the path towards EU, and it's going to be a long way to go. And once Ukraine is at the edge of entering EU, then EU will look different, and Ukraine also.
Thank you.
Okay.